Thanks for being here. This is a tough part of the day, but we always save the best for the end. We are here with César Garcia. He's a technical systems engineer. He's worked for the Madrid Council. He's been awarded with many innovation awards. And above all, he's a maker, and he's the chair of Make Space Madrid. A maker is a word we don't tend to use a lot in this country, although in this event we are fortunate to have many people who do many things, but it would be great to have more people like you. We had a very interesting discussion last night, and I delved into a passionate world I didn't know anything about. During the lunch break, we talked about the Internet of Things, but we don't tend to speak a lot about the good things that we can achieve through the Internet of Things. So please tell us, what is a maker and why did you take that path? A maker, and it comes from to make in English, and it's related to people who use technology in a creative way. They may use technology to make their projects a reality. We've heard many examples today. Arduino is also another example related to computers. But we also tend to combine this or to blend this with digital manufacturing techniques. When we create an object, we don't only have the processor or the instructions, but also the hardware and the programming part. People who come from the makers world, or people you find in makers spaces, are people who are eager to implement their projects, and they tend to come from very random places, from all walks of life. People who started studying chemistry and now they're doing fashion, or they started with biology, now they're using it for something completely unexpected. How do you start it? How do you start? How did you decide to go down that path? Well, when I was a kid, I was all the time doing things with my Spectrum computer, with the cassettes, if you remember them. And about 10 years ago, when I was working as an informatician, I met the people from Arduino, and I wanted to explore technology again in a different way. I wanted to test new things. This ability to connect computers with to the physical world in a simple way is what really caught me. I forgot to tell you that César's got a podcast and a Twitter account where he tells us about everything he does. So if you want to look into this a little bit more, you can follow him on the social media. There is a lot of information in English, but not that much in Spanish, actually. So if you go to fora to find information, you will find that most of it is in English and very little in Spanish. Many things are going on in this country, and it would be a great idea to push it. So if no one is doing it, I will do it. I will make it. How did Make Space Madrid come about? Well, we are a non-profit that started 7 years ago. We are in Medialab Prado, facilities in Madrid, public facilities, where people get together to work on projects. And that's where we started working with Arduino, and we wanted to apply it to something. We started developing things to use sensors for air quality, so people could collect data from home, and then discussing this with other groups. 5, 6 other groups came about as well, such as one that was dealing with radiation, such as Fukushima and so on. So we realized that we needed to have a space in order to move forward swiftly. We realized that many of us were getting together, and we wanted to create a new space. So we brought people together in it was not a theater, but it was a space, a venue in Madrid, because we realized that we needed that infrastructure in Madrid for people to come over and make their projects come true. And this is how we started. And it's been 7 years so far. Do you also have a pizza and beer there? Well, we do. We do have a little bit of everything because it's a living space. There are between 70 and 80 people, and we want to have a useful and enabling environment for people to do their stuff, but not only to use the tools, but we also we believe that the social component is very important, discussing with others and sharing ideas and finding links with each other is very interesting. What types of projects do you usually have in that space, in the Madrid Espacio? It is quite interesting from, as far as I'm concerned. I think that the fact that many different people get together is great. We have people interested in soft circuits, such as fabric circuits. Some others are entrepreneurs running projects on the Internet of Things, for instance. There's retired people who do not want to go to the bar and play cards at the pub or play darts. They have probably been working on electronics for 30 years and they want to keep up with the new things. So we've had people ranging 16 to 70. And serendipity comes up sometimes. And sometimes people get together and decide to make a living out of it. We talked about one of the examples yesterday, which is Most for All. Two people who had been working in the same company. They have seen each other many times in different meetings, and they met again after working in that place, and they decided to launch a joint project for a small device that's connected to tablets or Android smartphones, and people with mobility impairments. It helps them in their daily life, because sometimes they have they suffer from the digital divide, and this is a tool that helps them. They started with the first prototypes, and obviously this is not a factory, so when your project grows bigger, then you need to find another place to further develop it. But it's the right place to make the first steps and to help people own the technology. So that's one of the different uses of that space, to help people in their daily lives, especially in health issues. But there are other projects regarding public health. There are in Make Space. People come with their projects. We don't have a master line to tell people, or guidelines telling people what they need to do. People just go there to connect to other people and carry out their projects. Regarding the health, one of the interesting projects we had is one of the elderly people support center. They told us about a very interesting project, and we don't know what the project's about, but they told us that it's very interesting, and they don't know how to implement it. We don't know yet, but we went to the facilities They explained their problems they had regarding mobility, and two people there went to one of those shops where you can find everything. They bought random things to build their thing. But at the end of the day, they learned to model those pieces with a 3D printer to adapt them better to the users' lives. The interesting thing is that we don't only tell them how the printer works, but also how to share their projects with other people. And we had the hope that they would share it. There is a website called Thingiverse where there are 30 designs available where people can use that 3D design and they can print it at home. They don't need to travel to Madrid and buy it. Or they can just print it at home or have it printed somewhere else. So new designs that can be shared are created, and that's great. Okay, so you make them more independent. You help them be empowered. That's very powerful. There is another project called Breakers. Can you tell us about it? Breakers came about with the idea to teach or to train people on digital manufacturing. We wanted to convey everything we've learned over the years to the younger generation. We were trying to have a new way of working, and we created the Breakers program, which is a training program, 40 hours a week for vulnerable people in a vulnerable situation. And we tell them how to design, how to print, and it's often people who have never used a computer in their lives. It's amazing that some people have never used a computer in their lives and they just attend there and you can help them. It is very unexpected. Sometimes you see a 3D printer and you think it makes sense because it's a Cartesian axis with an x-axis and a z-axis, and other people do not understand how. So it's also about things we take for granted, and then you realize that there is a lot of work behind. Another thing we deem key is not to focus on technical aspects, but also on how to implement what they learned, because that would make young people stay. We work with shelters, and the challenge for people living in shelters is to make them stay. Sometimes they think it's boring and they want to leave and do other things. And someday they stop coming, and you understand that they decide to quit. So we wanted to keep them in. And we wanted to work with different skills applied to something specific. Breakers is a program that was started in Madrid and somewhere close to Barcelona. And there are many places in Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, Seville right now, where we all had the same way of planning the project, but when it came to implementing them, they needed to connect to someone or something around them in order to meet a need, an actual need around them. And that was very interesting for them because they could feel useful. They stopped being the troublesome young people in the neighborhood. They became people who could do something in their community. One of the projects they did was all the Christmas decoration for the University of Seville, and they worked on it. And the students of architecture in the architecture school loved it. So the people who did it showed off in front of everyone. And when they realized who had done it, they thought it was awesome. It was people who had dropped out, and they turned out to be very creative and very able and very willing. So, there are many examples like that in Make Space. Some participants of one of the latest editions got in touch with an urban garden to tell them how they could help. And they created they used the laser cutter to do the signaling and to create signal boards. This is just an example on how technology can be used for our daily purposes. In Castelldefels, for instance, they created a kayak, a sea kayak adapted for disabled people. So that's not something you would use in Madrid. And the beautiful thing about this is that it can be adapted to the framework or to the setting you're in. Yesterday you said something quite interesting. These young people are very lucky because there is not a lot of training about this in Spain. Yeah, and next month I've been studying this lately because young people tend to like everything, absolutely everything. The problem is how can they make a living, or that they are living with their parents, they want to move out, or they want to. So that's a key thing for them. When we analyzed the vocational training situation in Spain, we realized that except for the Basque Country, this is not something that's been discussed about. In the Basque Country, they do deal with this a little bit more, and we will see more and more in the next few years, and it will be introduced as new tools for small-scale prototypes or to manufacture things like in the Basque Country. There is a lot of metal manufacturing places. And it's precisely there that we're going to start working. Sometimes we're not aware of all the different uses we can have of this. Yes, at the end of the day, technology is a broad range of different uses. And technology can help make a difference when it comes to joining the work market. We have seen some success cases of young people who finish their study and end up working with something related. And you wouldn't think that's high technology, but it is. Decathlon, for instance, they have a teacher customization service. This is about vectoring design. People come up with an image, and then you have to do the vectoring and do vinyl cut, and you have to scale it and customize it. And it doesn't seem to be that, but it's actually what they had studied. And that could be quite useful for young people. So before we move on to the questions, could you please tell us very briefly about what you did in prisons, the inmates? Related to what we said about breakers, Yolanda suggested to participate in a European project called 3D Jail. 3D Jail is a project for inmates. In Italy, there is a Botica Solidaria, an Italian initiative where inmates sell their things they make to make money and support their family. So we decided to find a way to collaborate and do something like that. What would the inmate need to learn? How could they use it? People wonder, are they going to use knives inside in jail? Well, that got us thinking about the limitations and about the possible problems. But if you have the appropriate setting, you can help them join again the labor market. Was it a good experience? It was, definitely. Hello, Manuel, because you collaborated a lot. I don't know whether you're watching, but it's been very useful. Any questions from the audience? Well, his face rings a bell. I think he was here before. I got lots of questions, but one question that just came up. You were speaking about the new possibilities for new jobs, but I was also thinking of something stupid that happened to me at work. People needed some support for their laptops, and we gave them different options so that they could buy in Amazon or have it done by a carpenter, and they decided, they picked one that could be done with a laser cutter with the material you want. There is more and more people who want to be engaged in the manufacturing processes of the things they consume. So I wanted to ask you about this makers culture, because it seems to be changing the way we consume and the impact it might have. One of the funniest things is, well, 3 years ago, IKEA opened a space in Copenhagen called Space 10 to investigate, to do research on the future of manufacturing. There was a website called IKEA Hacks. Many people take the basic table to have their own service at home, and IKEA they were a little bit pissed off because they didn't want their name on those things. There was a change. A change has happened in the past few years, and companies are actually suggesting to the opposite. It's kind of a Lego. They give you the pieces, and then you put it together the way you please, and it's customized. People don't want to have the same thing all their friends have. This is a market that's very interesting, and even the companies are playing the game now. One of the challenges is a copyright. I think it was back in 2013 when Nokia, they launched their new model, and they decided to have to let people customize the design and print it at home. You were waiting for this, weren't you?
No será la primera vez. Entonces yo creo que es una tendencia.
I think this is a growing trend. Customization is a growing trend, and being able to customize what we have is quite interesting. This is also about skills. We think it's quite natural to use text editor, things like that, but when you are going to use a 3D printer, you need to know about materials and about the printing method and so on and so forth. There is quite a complex leap forward. In many high schools and in many centers, they have 3D printers. So people who there are many young people who are learning this from the very early stages of the training. The customization is going to be there, by all means. Any more questions? No more questions? Is that the last question? It is. Can you hear me? You said that you're studying, doing some research on the future of work, of jobs. Could you please share with us the type of the different profiles that you foresee? Well, you can Google that. I guess that in the future we'll see things. Well, when we did our research, we reached out to almost 80 experts. So they would tell us their demands or their needs in their workplaces. And we asked them to think of the future. And with all the information we got from different jobs, with different skills, we've had a second group of experts to tell us whether that's professional, whether that job would be more or less needed. We have separated them by categories. And we are already seeing things such as robotics. Robotics are obviously clearly going to have a long life. Many of the not very skills jobs that are coming up now will die out very soon. When we ask makers about what their job is going to be in the future, they reply that they are not interested in working on that in the future. That's quite a tricky point. If you tell them, "Oh, you do 3D printing, can I ask you to do something for me?" No, I don't do this as a job. This is just my hobby. So there are different roles, there are different profiles, there are different things. Many people are trying to find something new, trying to develop their tastes. There's a website where you can find Fab Labs. fablabs.io. There are 64 or 70 in Spain right now. And I would suggest you to go to the nearest Fab Lab and see what they do there. You will find new things and you will learn a lot because people go there looking forward to share things. Okay, we have run out of time, so I want to close with what you just said, that these events are great and discussing is amazing, but the important thing is to leave this place and do something. It is not about thinking how wonderful this is and then forgetting in a couple of days. Can you give us some ideas on how companies can help you? Come on, it's time to finish, but this is the more important part of it. If you want to collaborate as a company or as a group, do what Seven Trees did. Go to your local place and try to think of possible projects and see whether people are eager to do it or not, because they might not. So go out and explore. If you can go to spaces like as if you went to dancing classes, you go there every day, you see how the rhythm goes, you see whether you like it, and then that's it. It's like you need to try out. This is like tango. You need to try it out. You need to dance yourself. And if your feet start moving, it means you're happy with it. So give it up for Cesar.